Committee meeting. Roll call, please.
Alderman Art Woods.
Here.
Alderman Curielli.
Here.
Alderman Carr.
Here.
Alderwoman Fonseca.
Here.
Alderman Fasano.
Here.
Alderwoman Ames.
Here.
Alderman Artie Woods.
He's here, he just stepped out for a minute.
Alderman Catalano.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you. Approval of the minutes. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for December 11th, 2025 of the Planning, Zoning, and Building Committee meeting.
Second.
I have a second. Any corrections, changes, modifications? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have one report tonight, an update from the 2012 building codes to 2021 building codes. The Planning, Zoning, and Building Committee review number 3 of 3. Items are property maintenance, existing building code, and chapters 12 and 6. Director Springer, do you have some words to
I
say?
do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman Curielli. So this is the third segment of 3 segments of committee review of the different building codes that we are adopting from 2021. And so this is the final committee. The next step after this will be City Council review and hopefully approval of all of the building codes, and we expect that to happen at the first meeting in February. So tonight we are reviewing the Property Maintenance Code, the International Existing Building Code, and 2 chapters in our municipal code. And I do have a little presentation. And similar to the last 2 meetings, we have Don Wilkins from Safe Built, our consultant on the building codes, joining us remotely. And he will be able to answer any questions that come up. So first, we'll talk about the Property Maintenance Code. And we already adopted the last version, the 2012 Property Maintenance Code, and there were already some existing amendments in there. This first item is us amending one of the amendments. So there already are provisions in the code that graffiti needs to be removed within 15 days. We are proposing to change that to 7 calendar days. We've had some issues with, does 15 days mean calendar days, or does it mean business days? And so then do I have 3 weeks to correct it, or what? So we're clarifying it with 7 calendar days, which is similar to other municipalities. Obviously, when you have something like that go up, you want it removed as quickly as possible. But there is a provision in there that says the city does have the ability to extend the timeline for compliance if, for say, example, there are extenuating circumstances. The second item is revising the current language to clarify that building addresses not only must be visible at all times from the street, but they also have to be visible from the alleys at the rear of the property. So say there are detached garages facing an alley, and first responders need to go down to the alley and come in from the rear. They need to know that they're in the right spot, so all of those garages should have addresses on them. So that's an amendment. The third one is something similar. It is that secondary address identification on all rear exit doors. So think of behind a shopping center, behind a multi-tenant building. Sometimes, first responders need to get in the rear, and this will make sure that there are appropriate addresses on the backs of those buildings. Are there any questions on this one? All right. International Existing Building Code. Now, this is a new code for us. We had not previously adopted it. And what it does is it covers the repair, alteration, addition, and change of occupancy for existing buildings and historic buildings. So it allows the city to encourage the reuse of existing buildings or historic buildings by allowing the property owners to achieve appropriate levels of safety through alternate methods without requiring them to bring those buildings up to the current code requirements. This is often useful in towns that have historic downtowns, and you want to be able to allow the continued use of these older buildings, but there's no way it's possible, let's say, to fit an elevator in because the building is so small, or there's no room to fit the additional requirements for venting. So this allows the building official or the city to be able to accept alternate methods to meet the code requirements and make the building safer without having them to come up to the full code requirements. And the last sentence of that says, the intent is to achieve a level of safety for the occupants without requiring an existing building to be brought fully into compliance with the current codes. And so basically it allows some flexibility for existing buildings. It's a good thing for property owners and encourages investment. The next one is just a little bit about this International Existing Building Code. We are adopting it because it's actually referenced in most of the other codes that we are adopting. It refers to this code. And so what that does, it allows a seamless approach throughout all the codes to refer to each other, and all of them are adopted. The third bullet point relates to amendments, and really we're not amending much in this code. It's mainly referencing the administrative requirements that we have in our municipal code, and it's consistent with the changes that we're making in all of the other codes. Are there any questions on the IEBC? All right. The next one is Chapter 12. Now, this is not an actual building code, like a book, like this is the property maintenance code. But it is language that lives in our city municipal code, the big binder or the document online. And so these are all of the regulations related to building permits that we've adopted here at the city. Now, in that section, there are the adoptions of these individual codes that we've been talking about, along with the local amendments. But the language that I'm talking about here is the remainder of that. It's really all of the other stuff in that code section. So the first thing we're proposing to change is adding language that clarifies that prefab or kit sheds, gazebos, and pergolas that are 100 square feet or less in size only require zoning review, like setbacks and lot coverage. They don't need to comply with the building code. So let me give you a little bit of background on that. What's been happening is we have a lot of residents buying kit sheds or kit gazebos online through Amazon. They get them home, and then they apply for the building permit. Well, of course, these types of structures aren't designed for this climate, our snow load requirements here in the Midwest, or the wind load requirements that we have. And so ultimately, the response to them when they submit for a permit is you have to make your roof stronger, and you have to make the structure meet our wind load requirements. Well, most people don't understand what that means. A lot of times they would have to hire an architect. This has been a problem that's been ongoing, and so we talked to our consultant from HR Green that does our plan reviews, and he had said that he had seen in other communities that have adopted something like this, which is helpful to the residents, that basically says, you don't have to meet those snow and wind code requirements or the building code requirements for these smaller prefab kit structures. And so that's what the first bullet point is doing. Yes, sir.
Alderperson Woods?
Thank you. Since this is, I don't know if it's number one, but it's on the radar quite often, as you and I have discussed many times. My only suggestion or thought here when I looked at this and then went and looked at some of the stuff that you can order, some of the scenarios and debates that I've had with residents, as did you guys in the building department, if we could just change that to 120 square feet, I think that would take care of probably 99% of the issues based on the history that I have with this over the years.
Director Springer?
If the rest of the council is amenable to that, that's a small increase. I looked up standard shed kit sizes today, and the vast majority of them are 8 by 8, 6 by 8, 8 by 10. 10 by 10, but there are, for those that would like a larger shed, 10 by 12 does happen pretty regularly. So from the staff perspective, we wouldn't necessarily have an objection to that if the rest of the council's okay with it.
Alderperson Fasano?
I have no objection.
Oh, I'm sorry, Alderperson Fonseca, sorry.
I was wondering, because I had her hand out. Yeah, right, I didn't know, I thought you had.
So is that specifically freestanding structures, or are they also structures that are attached to the buildings?
So, I'm sorry.
Director Springer?
So yes, it really is for prefab structures. Something that's attached to the building has to meet different building code requirements because it's part of the principal structure.
Follow-up question?
Just want to make sure that that's specified, that it is freestanding structures and not, did I miss that part? I'm sure we'll get questions on that when people are trying to do updates.
Yep. Director Springer?
Yes, we can certainly add the word detached for specification.
And we're still limited to just one shed? This doesn't add a second shed? Okay.
No, there is a code requirement that's in the UDO. We're not amending the UDO right now. That says that only one type of each structure is allowed. So you can't have 3 sheds or 3 pergolas, that type of thing.
Mayor, please?
Yeah, sheds have always been a problem, and honestly, I was going to bring up 150, but if 120 works, I'm good with that. But you're at 12.5. I had a question on 12.4, or is that in a different Article 4 code amendments? Would that be somewhere different, next groupings? I don't want to get
Director
ahead.
Springer?
No, actually, I did not put that, that particular section up on the screen, so this would be an appropriate time to address it.
Okay, so on the pages here, let's see, what page are we on? 22 of the packet, 12.401, it's all redlined, and my question was, if you take all this stuff out, is it somewhere else in the codes? I know I called you on this. You said you would get back to me tonight, so.
Yes.
Director
Thank you,
Springer?
Mayor Police. So what the mayor is referring to for the rest of the committee's edification is some language that was in the building code that stated that all commercial and industrial buildings had to be the exteriors had to be constructed of 85% brick and stone, and that multifamily buildings had to be constructed of a minimum of 25% brick and stone. I see this type of requirement in lots of communities in the Chicagoland area. It really is for aesthetics, improved property value, increased investment in the community, increased building value. And it's also more attractive, rather than using lower quality materials, your Dryvit or your steel panels or something like that. That section, the reason I didn't bring it up in this summary is that section was actually eliminated back in 2022 when the UDO was completely overhauled or updated. And what happened was there were some minimum brick and stone on the facade for new construction guidelines that were added. There was a whole chapter added about guidelines. These are the things we think you should do. The problem with guidelines is they're suggestions. They're not requirements. And so we internally in the Community Development Department had talked about adding some back in. It was very beneficial when we were negotiating with CyrusOne. I think as you drive around Chicagoland, you will see that a lot of these data centers are one big concrete or prefab wall, precast wall all the way around with no articulation, no windows, one color or 2 colors. What we were able to achieve with CyrusOne was to get them to put at least 25% glass and other materials other than the precast. And so our buildings, I am sure once they are up, other communities will be pointing at our buildings and saying, hey, we want our data centers to look like the ones in Wooddale. So my point is, we may want to add back in as regulations, maybe not something as strict as 85% brick and stone for exterior materials, but maybe 50%. It does give us the ability to require that, And rather than suggesting it, because we all know that developers don't necessarily take suggestions, they will follow regulations.
Mayor Police?
That's why I saw it all crossed off, and I'm like, all right, is it somewhere else? I'm not seeing it. And we should have some kind of requirement instead of just a suggestion, my opinion.
Alderperson Woods?
Yeah, I'll second the mayor's suggestion, going back to point one of 150 square feet. Which would then cover those people that want to buy the hot tubs and have the pre-assembled kit for the hot tubs, because the hot tubs are usually 8 by 8, the bigger ones, would require like a 12 by 12 shed gazebo.
Director Springer?
Okay, to start with the last comment first, this prefab kit requirements only apply to buildings, so sheds, gazebos, or pergolas. There is no maximum for hot tubs. You just need to meet setback requirements.
But if you put the hot tub in the
Oh.
shed, screen porch, gazebo, whatever we're calling that, which is pretty common, right? And the common sizes are like 7'6", 8 by 8, 7'6" by 8. And those usually go into roughly a 12 by 12 gazebo shed thingy, which is 144 square feet. So I would round up to the mayor's 150.
Those calls every year.
Alderperson Fonseca?
Has there been any kind of assessment done to determine the risk between 100 square feet versus 150 square feet? Like for flying away, going into other people's backyards, having to try to chase them or anything like that?
Director Springer?
So, no. The idea with keeping it smaller, like the 10 by 10, is the structure is smaller, the roof is smaller. If something does detach, it won't do that. We did talk about that internally in the department as well. What should be the number? I'd like to noodle the suggestion from Alderman Woods about the hot tub component, because if we're exempting sheds from building requirements, and there's a hot tub inside that has electrical, the hot tub would still have to meet, excuse me as I talk out loud.
That's okay.
Think
No, I
out
love
loud. The hot tub would still have to meet electrical requirements, but I worry that there might be something else with the structure that would need to be reinforced that we might miss if we're not doing a building code review. In response to the question about 150, again, if the committee feels that's appropriate, I'm fine.
To think out loud with her.
Alderperson Woods, think out loud.
So the tub could be another trigger. Two things could be true. One, you could have a shed, gazebo, whatever structure up to 150 square feet. Then part two is what you put in it. And if that's a driver to another code or another layer of scrutiny, i.e. building permit, but then you just say you don't need a permit for a hot tub.
Director Springer?
You do need a permit for a hot
Okay.
tub, but there's no maximum size
Okay.
for a hot tub.
So does that make sense then? So that we'll approve the 150. The 150 would cover those people that would maybe want the hot tub in there. And the tub could be smaller, not, who knows? But based on what they submit, then that would trigger the level of permit or scrutiny, whether it's just zoning or zoning and building.
Director?
These are done
I'm
all over the
confused.
United States.
I guess I'm not sure of the question. How would you trigger a second level review?
Well, that was your statement, that the hot tub would then require a building permit, right?
Correct.
So I would call that the next layer of scrutiny, right? You're going from zoning only to now zoning and building review. The hot tub being the trigger, that being said, like I said, these things are done all throughout the United States, all the time. I don't know of any of them flying around in anybody's yard, especially the bigger ones. You know, maybe if the light ones, the all plastic ones that didn't have anything in them, I would imagine that those could, under the right conditions. But, you know, quite a few years in the building business, I don't know any of them that have flown away.
Well,
What I would say to that is, perhaps we can make the recommendation, if the committee agrees, to do the 10 by 15, 150. In the meantime, before we bring this back to you on February 5th, I will confirm with our building consultant whether or not there's any concerns about, larger sheds being more of a danger, or having, the hot tubs in the shed, if that shed should also be subject to building code requirements. And if there's any concerns, I can bring them back to you when we adopt the final codes.
Mayor Police?
So technically, they can have a shed, whatever's so many feet from the property line, then a lot of people put those hot tubs right next to their house or something. But the sheds, I'm sure they still have to be anchored right to the ground. They're not just sitting on the grass, right? So they still have to go through something, some kind of review that it's anchored into the ground somehow, right? I'm sure there's some kind of correct standard or whatever. That's
Director Springer?
So there is a requirement for sheds to be anchored to the ground. If you wanted to put one on the deck, you can. Of course, the deck has to be properly anchored to the ground, and the shed has to be properly anchored to the deck.
No, I wasn't
Oh.
saying put the shed on the deck. I'm just saying they're allowed both, but actually, I know there's a couple houses in town that have the hot tub inside of a room already. Kind of makes sense. No,
Yeah, it's done.
right.
That was a couple of the issues that came up in Ward 2, and it's come up not only here, in other communities, they've had the same. That's what I'd say, why we're talking about it, that's why I would opt for the bigger size. And again, anchored, the bigger ones are heavier, they're not gonna fly away.
Okay.
They'll be fine.
Okay?
Okay. Alderperson Woods?
Mine has nothing to do with hot tubs. I was just waiting for that part to end. But going back to the comment about the UDO, just to clarify, the two like structures being on the property is not allowed. Does that not apply? Is that only detached? Like we have residents who have an attached garage and a detached garage? That's still allowed. I know we're not talking about that.
Director Springer?
That is correct. That, it's only for detached buildings.
Gotcha.
So sheds, gazebos, those greenhouses, those types of things.
Thank you.
Mayor Police?
So I'm not sure where we stand on that 12.401.
Yes.
So,
Director Springer?
So it looks like there's not a strong objection to having some minimum, quality materials in types of buildings. Right now, or previously, that language was 85% for commercial and industrial buildings. I think that's a little bit high, which is maybe one of the reasons it was moved to the guidelines, because people couldn't possibly meet that standard, but 50% is reasonable. And it was 25% for multifamily. So I would recommend either 25 or 50% for multifamily and 50% for commercial and industrial, and we can certainly add that in before we bring it back to you.
Mayor Police?
quick, that's not just because I think we went to 50% brick a long time ago, and then we went off of that. This is just basically more brick and concrete or whatever combination. And the windows were exempt and all that stuff, right? Okay.
Correct. We will clarify.
I'm not sure I understand what you just said.
No, years ago, we had passed a brick ordinance. We went to 50% brick. And then after, I think, a couple of years, variances, this and that, we changed it and we went off of that. So that's why it's kind of caught me. I'm like, okay, so what are we doing? Where is it? I'm okay with your suggestions if you feel that's right, as long as everybody concurs.
But didn't, so if I could just But didn't we have that when we were reviewing the apartments next door? Because wasn't that one of the things through all of the applicants to limit the brick? Because whether it was 85%, I don't remember what the number was.
Director Springer?
So that section has been in the code, and we're eliminating it now. Because it was in the code, we applied that standard to the building next door. It was 25%. I think they ended up at 28%. And we recommended higher. So we had been using it because it was still in the written code, but it should not have been there. It was actually deleted in 2022. To answer the other question, yes, it's not just 50% brick, it's brick or stone. So it can be split-face block, it can be, stone, it's really looking for durable materials. And yes, windows are exempted from that. So for example, when we did the apartments next door, we had them take all the windows out, and the remainder, we wanted 25% of that to be brick and stone, and they were able to meet that.
Air Police?
So, yeah, the reason I brought it up, as I went through this, it's all redlined, and I'm like, is it somewhere else? And maybe 50% is too high. I know you just said 50%, and then you said 25% for something else. Just to be clear, if you can clarify that, I'm just.
Director?
I was suggesting 50% for commercial and industrial and 25% for multifamily, which is what it was. It was 25%. I'd like to see 50 for across the board, but, we can keep it at the 25% it was previously, if that's okay with everyone.
Alderperson Woods?
Yeah, and the language you just used, durable materials or goods, I know that came up quite often when we were reviewing these properties, and that was part of the argument that a cementinous panel was a durable good, right? So is the language going to be clarified to masonry, full masonry, cultured masonry, more defined? Because I think the overall, or the overarching thing was to get greater variance in the facades and get greater variety of materials and greater interest in those facades. I think that's the goal, anyway.
Director?
We will draft up some language and bring it back to you when the building codes come before you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All
Thank you.
right, so the next one is really a simple amendment. It just reflects that we don't need 7 copies of paper, plans anymore. Everything's electronic. And if you lose your copy of digitally approved plans, you can just print them out, from the website. The next one is related to base inspections required for driveway installations. Oh.
He
Mayor,
beat me
please.
on this one.
So, but no hard copy, but I thought I saw somewhere that they needed a hard copy on job sites. Did I read that right?
Director?
That requirement exists in the code and is not being changed. They are required to have a hard copy of the approved plans on the site. Previously, we would charge them if they lost those or damaged those, because we would print them out like the big sheets, and there would be a cost to us, so we would pass that on. But now that it's electronic, they can print it out themselves, but they still have the requirement to have a copy on site.
Alderperson Woods?
Yeah, I'm going to the base inspection. Didn't we have that? 'Cause I don't do very much in Wooddale, but the one project I did, I had to call for that inspection, so it was actually on the inspection card.
Director?
So I think it was something that had historically been done for a number of years here in Wooddale. For some reason, prior to my coming to the city, they stopped happening.
Okay.
We surveyed all this like 10 surrounding communities, our first layer around and the next layer around, and every single one of them, well, 9 out of the 10 require pre-pour inspections for driveways. The one that is the 10th one, it wasn't that they don't require it, it's we couldn't find it in their code, so we needed to call, and I didn't call. So it's likely that 100% require them. Every single driveway contractor calls us for pre-pours, and we say we don't do them. Well, part of the problem has been now we don't know if they're getting the proper base, and driveways are failing sooner, and residents are calling us and saying, they didn't do a good job on my driveway. And so we want to correct that and require the pre-pour inspections for resident protection. The last one is to clarify the difference between a...
Alderperson Ames.
For item number 2, so the requirement for all the permit submittals to be electronic, is that for residents also, or is this just for business? Because I do have people that do not have a computer, and they cannot do things online, so how are we going to address that?
Director Springer?
Yes, we absolutely come across that quite often. We have, you can always have them call us. If they do have a computer and just can't figure out how to do it, I hear the staff all the time explaining and walking people through step by step how to apply online. If they don't have a computer, they can come to our window, and we have people that we'll take the laptop out into the hallway to the counter there, and we can do it with them or for them, and then we can scan the documents and upload it to the site. So,
Okay, thank you.
no problem.
Alderperson Woods.
So if I send my residents, not my residents, the residents here, you guys have the ability to scan all those documents for them?
Director?
Up to 11 by 17, yes.
Okay. So mainly the smaller stuff, the other stuff would be coming from probably licensed professionals that could be given in electronic. All right.
Ideally, people could take a picture of documents as well and upload them. I don't want to advertise that we're available to
I don't
scan
wanna-
everybody's documents.
Scratch the video person back there.
Yeah. Going on to the last one, sometimes people request a certificate of occupancy when they remodel their house or they've done an addition, and technically, per the building code, certificates of occupancy aren't issued for that. Sometimes if there's been damage, a fire, like an insurance company will say, you have to show that you've got a certificate of occupancy from the city in order for us to pay you out. What we've been issuing is a certificate of completion. The building code does allow for that, and it's accepted by insurance companies. And so this is adding some language to clarify that when certificate of occupancies aren't justified, for example, there's not a change in occupancy and it's not a new structure, we can issue you this separate document that we know is acceptable to insurance companies and mortgage companies. All right. The last one is related to the rental residential section of the city code. There's something in there that basically says that their bedrooms are not allowed in basements. I understand that many years ago we had overcrowding issues in some of these rentals. However, more recently, people have been constructing buildings in basements. You are allowed to do that if you meet certain building code requirements, for example, like an escape window. And so, for example, a couple homes, new homes that were built right nearby, one of the property owners wants to rent out the home. There is a legal bedroom in the basement that is eligible to be rented, but for some reason our code won't allow it. And so we'd like to correct that and say you can have bedrooms in the basement in rental structures provided they meet all the building safety code requirements.
But that wasn't in our, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
That wasn't in our code already?
No.
That wasn't part of international code or any?
Director?
It is allowed in the building code, but in our rental residential section of our code, we prohibited it. So even if you could build one legally, you couldn't use it for rental purposes. So this corrects the problem.
Never mind, I won't. I'll let it go.
That is everything that I have. We are looking for a recommendation for approval this evening.
Question. So going back to the basement, so how about the garden apartments in the, there's 2 flats and they have garden apartments, that's considered a basement, is that?
That gets complicated as to how much is below grade and above grade, but we've been allowing garden apartments. And so that really hasn't been the issue. It's more single-family homes that are building extra bedrooms in the basement.
Okay, thank you.
So we are seeking a recommendation for approval of the building codes. We have Don Wilkins, who sat patiently through this meeting. But Don, it looks like I was able to answer the questions, unless there are more.
I'll make a recommendation to approve with the adjustments that you had made notes on for clarification.
There a second? A second. Any further debate? There being none, roll call, please.
Alderman Artwoods,
Yes.
Alderman Currielli,
Yes.
Alderman Carr,
Yes.
Alderwoman Fonseca,
Yes.
Alderman Fasano,
Yes.
Alderwoman Ames,
Yes.
Alderman Artie Woods,
Yes.
and Alderman Catalano.
Yes.
And that motion passes. Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
Don.
Wilkins. Thank you, Director Springer.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. You guys have a wonderful evening.
You too.
So items to be considered at future meetings, Wooddale Park District Special Use Senior Center, February 12th. UDO text amendment, February 12th. Master fee schedule update, February 12th. Anything else? There being none, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.
I'd like to call to order the Finance and Administration Committee. Let the minute taker note that the same members are present. I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 11th, 2025 for the Finance and Administration Committee. Are there any questions, comments, corrections? Are none? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And that passes. I do have 4 report and recommendations this evening, the first being the new audit contract. Are there any questions regarding that? Alderman Artie Woods?
Probably an obvious question, but does the state require that we have an independent audit every year?
Director Wilson?
Yes.
I figured. Thank you.
Alderman Currielli?
We didn't send this out to bid, so how long have we had the current auditor? For 11 years?
Director Wilson?
Correct, 11 years, yes.
And do they rotate audit teams on any regular basis?
Director Wilson?
Yes. Every year, there's at least one different person on it. But since we've been with them this 11-year cycle, we've had 3 different partners, 4 different in charges, and probably 12 different lower-level staff rotating through the teams. I have discussed with them about the rotation process, and they do have capacity to rotate again if we want to see a bit of a more regular rotation or a mandatory rotation at certain levels. They do have capacity to do that at this point.
So we do have them do that?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Alderman Artwoods?
Now, is there any reason that we wouldn't go out and solicit bids from other and want to change?
Director
I'm
Wilson?
assuming all the people that work for the company are under the same policy, same rules, same guidelines, same, right? So there's a consistency through the company, even though the name might change. Reviewing it, the processes are different, and so isn't there some benefit to maybe going to another company that while I know that there's general standardized guidelines for review, different approaches to those reviews?
Director Wilson?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so typically, we would put this out to bid. The last few years, the landscape has changed quite a bit. There's been a lot of private equity acquisitions of these auditing firms. When we did this, the bid 5 years ago, I think I had 5 respondents. Three of those respondents I talked to earlier this year at the conference, they said they wouldn't even be able to bid because our price would just be, it would be price prohibitive for them. The one firm that is bidding on a lot of work, they do other work for the city, so we would, if we were to hire them, we would then have to hire another firm to audit that work that they do for us, which would ultimately wind up costing us more money. And then the other firm, I don't want to disparage anybody, but they don't really have a great reputation. There's been other towns that have done bids, and there's been 2 bidders on a lot of recent audit RFPs. And again, one of those 2 firms is the one that already does work for us in another capacity that we would have to then hire another firm to audit that part of the work.
But if we just switch players, so Sikich would take what they did as the other piece, and that guy move over?
Director Wilson?
Yeah, that they don't do, Sikich doesn't do the type of work that LNA does. They do different types of work that ancillary work isn't performed by Sikich. They don't have a team that does that work. And the other company that we would use for that, I think is also does work at the state level for the state for IPOPF. So again, there's a little bit of a rub there between, from an independent standpoint, on the police pension side of things.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Okay, roll call. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll make the motion to continue with Sikich for the auditing. Roll call, please.
Alderman Catalano?
Yes.
Alderman Artie Woods?
Yes.
Alderwoman Ames?
Yes.
Alderman Fasano?
Yes.
Alderwoman Fonseca?
Yes.
Alderman Carr?
Yes.
Alderman Currielli?
Yes.
And Alderman Art Woods.
No.
And that passes. Next is the Wooddale Fire Department TIF funding request. Mr. Wilson, do we have a presentation?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I believe the FD does have some slides and some statements, so if it's okay with you, I'll turn it over to Chief Joel, and I will get that pulled up for you.
Absolutely. Chief?
Whichever one
Whichever
you
you
want.
prefer, as long as we can hear you.
Very good. Thanks. So I've got a short, I'm Pat Joel, the Fire Chief of Wooddale Fire District. Thank you for having us tonight and considering our request. I've got about 10 slides here. It's really just some pictures of current conditions and a couple of kind of rough drawings of what we envision for the upgrade of the station. So this station is on Wooddale Road, just north of the City Hall here. And what we're looking to do with this project is get another 30 years of use out of the building to run our headquarters and our operations out of for the north side of the town and the north side of our district, north of the railroad tracks, without further major work. So if we can get this project completed and our request is approved, we can get this work done, and we shouldn't have to do any major repairs or remodeling until about 30 years from now. And at that point, we would be considering a new station altogether. We priced out a new building on our property there. Our stations are both located appropriately. We did a study in 2017 and 2019. They're both located exactly where they need to be for response times and for serving the citizens in our district, but they're both buildings that were built in 1970. So we've had to do some major work at the station south of the tracks. We did that in 21 and 22. And now the station north of the tracks here on Wooddale Road is due. Hopefully you'll be able to see them in some of the pictures. So if I can get this to work for you. All right. That was quick too. Okay, so on the right, that's our station as it sits today. And on the left is our rendering from the architect. We had a hazard assessment and assessment of the building done actually on the whole property to come up with this idea and to get an estimate on the pricing for what would need to be repaired and replaced. But that's a side looking at it from the south, and there it is from the north. So as you can tell a little bit better in this picture, we've got some aged kind of finish on the building, the cedar shake on the south end of the building over the headquarters. That was put up in 1994, that side of the fire station, and hasn't been touched since. It resembles a chain of pizza restaurants that we would like to improve the look of. So there's a bunch of ways to do that, but it's time. We have to paint that cedar shake every year. We have to repair the cedar shakes every year, and there's better ways to improve the look and maintain the property. Current conditions outside, there's some more pictures. You can see the two sides of the fire station don't match. We would like to just improve the aesthetic look and make it a little more welcoming to the residents of our district. That's our front entrance on the bottom right. And you can see down the line of our administrative offices, the windows. Included in the project are going to be new windows and doors all the way around. We're going to do upgrade to our main entrance, provide some more security, which you'll see a slide of the interior a little further on in the show. But there's a pane of glass between our administrative assistant and the public, and the door is open when we're open for business, and there's no way to kind of regulate who comes in and out. We have been lucky to not have any real issues, but sometimes she's there by herself when we're on a call, and we'd like to get her some more protection from when she's there running the fire station and the district, and we're taking care of the residents. So we've already done some work that's included in the project and in our request. On the left is the emergency siren, the tornado alert siren. That is a city-owned siren. We had one on each of the fire stations. And you can see on the top part of our building, there's a metal structure up there still. The siren used to be mounted up there. Well, every week the siren spins, and once a month it spins for an extended period of time to run the test. And that motion, and then activations when there's storms and tornadoes coming, that motion and vibration damages the building because it's attached to the buildings through holes in the masonry and frame structures, and after 50 years, vibration like that, if you got masonry repaired to make. There's better options like mounting it on a telephone pole behind the building. So we got approval from city staff to move it. The location didn't need to be changed because it's still at the fire station, so residents heard it where they need to hear it. We paid for that, and it's still powered off of the fire station. It's got a battery backup system, which comes into play here later on in the slide presentation. But on the right, we got new apparatus bay doors for where the ambulance and the fire engine and the battalion chief park. Those had to be replaced because we could no longer get parts for the doors that were there. So they were fabricating parts so that we could still open the doors and respond to calls. And it just came to time in 2023 that we had to replace them. So that work's been done already, but is included in the project. Inside the station, we need a new roof across both sides of that building. And there's just some pictures up here of some of the leaks. We do change the tiles out occasionally when they get really bad, but it's a constant process because the roof leaks. We've had the roof repaired. That roof is 25 years old. It's due, and it's ready to be replaced. It's caused water damage, not only to the ceiling tiles and some of the lights, but the wallpaper and the walls coming down in the building. This room is our most public space of the fire station. That's where we have our board meetings. That's where we have our training classes. That's where we entertain the public when they're here in our station. So we would like to make that a nicer environment. Hopefully attract some more people to interact with us. Finally, our big dollar item of the project is a new generator. So the generator for our station is a backup generator, natural gas. It only powers the firefighter side where the engine, the ambulance, and the battalion chief are. So when we're out of power, the administration has no power, no computers, no phones. And the generator does not power the apparatus bay doors. So just this year, we were out of power for 2 days. The firefighters had to manually open the doors with chains or park the vehicles outside until we got power restored. Even though the generator was running, they had lights, air conditioning, they could use the kitchen. There's just some upgrades that are long overdue that need to be made. So we're looking to replace that generator with a whole station generator. We stay open for business whether we have power supply from our supplier or not. We can run the generator power as long as we need to. The front entrance security, I kind of talked about that a little bit. That's our Megan's only protection there from the public if somebody comes in and they're angry or worse. So we would like to improve that, and along with that, we're looking at a camera system for outside the building. It's very easy for anybody with bad intentions to know when we're not in the building anymore. They just wait for the lights to turn on and the vehicles to drive away. They know the building's empty and they can break in, and we have no way of really knowing who was in there or who got in or anything like that, how they got stuff out. So we'd like to improve security outside. That's going to include new lights outside in the parking areas and camera systems. So the nuts and bolts here, the total cost of the project. In my application, in my narrative, I spell out a much more detailed list of our scope. But the total cost is just over $2 million, and what we're asking for is for 50% of that to come from the TIF. So the district has the $1 million that would make up our 50% right now. And the other goal with this project is not only to get 30 years out of the building of useful life, additional to where it is now, but we don't want to take on any new debt in the district for any more work. So we would like to be able to do this project all at once. If for whatever reason the committee felt that it didn't meet the standard or doesn't want to approve it, we would have to phase that work in over the next probably 10 years. And it would again increase costs to our residents to maintain the parts of the building that couldn't be replaced all at once. So if the project's approved, we're ready to get started in April. We have a kickoff meeting planned to come up with specs and scope out the project with our architect firm. We expect completion in July of 27, and the only delay that they've really brought up right now would be in getting a generator delivered. It depends on the manufacturer and their delays and shipping delays and everything else. I waited 18 months for HVAC units that I got on a grant for that station just 3 years ago. So that would be the only reason to really extend it. All the other work can be done in that time period, and we should be finished by July of 27 if we're approved today. So again, I thank you for your time. I'm happy to take any questions, and hopefully we'll be able to get a new, better looking station here in the near future.
Thank you so much for that. I do have a couple of questions. The first one, that when this was brought forward, in 2021, there was a referendum that was passed. So according to the information on that, you were getting about $1 million a year. So what has been that money been spent on? And it seemed like in the information for that, it was targeted to use for renovations at both of the fire stations. So can you explain how that money's been used?
Sure. So when we got the referendum passed on the third attempt, the referendum was requested so that we could maintain our operations and keep both stations open and staffed. So that was to cover operational costs of the minimum of 6 firefighters a day and a leaned out administration. We had already eliminated 2 positions in our administration at that point just to afford to operate. So that referendum was really to keep the south station, south of the tracks, open, because if we didn't get that passed when it finally passed in 2023, that station was going to have to be closed, and we were going to have to run out of the one on Wooddale Road. So that wasn't for any capital improvement. That wasn't for any kind of renovations. That was simply to maintain our operations at a minimum of 6 firefighters a day and 6 paramedics a day. So that was not part of the referendum.
Yeah, actually, I looked back at just some information, and it did say that for both of the stations. So I was just curious if it was generating, say, roughly $1 million a year since I don't know how long it takes to actually get that money once it was passed, but you did some renovations on the station by Georgetown already, correct?
We did, and we had to go for a loan for that because we did not have the money. There's no way for us to save for that, even after we got the referendum. So that project started while we were in the process of requesting the referendum. And we couldn't wait anymore. I mean, we had water pouring in through the roof, and we had a heating and air conditioning unit that didn't work at all. So we couldn't wait anymore. We couldn't house people there until we got that fixed, and we had to go for a loan for that. So that right now is our only debt for the district, besides the normal operational costs of, pension, insurance, and just like the city has. But that's our only loan that's standing out, is the station work at 69 South Tracks. So, but we had to do that, and that money that we got with the referendum comes the year after it passes. We collect our taxes the year after, but that was to maintain our operations and the funds up to be fully staffed.
Okay, and one other question too. You had shown the picture of the overhead doors. So those have been recently replaced because they look new. So you said it was part of the project?
Yeah,
like, are you still replacing them again, or you can't get parts for those doors? Or?
No, in the scope and in the application, I included the price for those, and I spelled out that work had already been completed. I also did move the siren off the building.
Okay.
That was just stuff we couldn't wait for. We started this project 2 years ago with an architecture firm that didn't complete the work that they contracted with us to do, and nowhere close to the time they were supposed to be done. And then we had to go out and delay the project 6 months while we searched for another architect firm to do our study on our environment and our hazards in the building. So that work on the doors and the siren move, we just couldn't wait on that anymore. So we covered that, and we're just asking to be reimbursed for that as part of this project. So.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because they look brand new.
No, those doors are new. We
Like,
don't have any plan to
They look
replace
really
them.
nice.
They were great. So.
Okay, all right, thank you. Alderman Artie Woods, question?
2 questions, probably more for Brad. How much is left in the tip that's available?
Director Wilson.
Right now, fund balance is around 10 million.
And then my next question, just looking over the 150 we already spent on fire out of the TIF, not we spent, but 555 for the Park District, 356 for the school. Is there any kind of precedent, I guess, for how we divide the funds that the council has done? Maybe someone else on the council can answer that, but.
Director Wilson.
I say so far, heretofore, it's been if anyone submits a TIF application, staff, we vet it and then bring it forward to the committee for consideration. So heretofore, there's not like a hard policy, like, okay, this taxing body can only get X amount or Y amount, or this can get that much, so. Correct, and we run it past TIF council to make sure it's an eligible project, a doable project. But there's no, again, at this time, there's no like guidelines or regulations regarding that. It's just, as they come in, we vet them and bring them before the committee and council.
I guess one last follow-up, is there any expectation of the library or Park District or anyone else coming forward anytime soon? I know the big projects were just done for them, but.
Yeah, I'm unaware of anything. I don't know if the manager's heard anything. Okay. Yeah, so these 3 projects, the school, the park, and fire, we knew about these about a year ago. And as the chief said, unfortunately, they had that delay in their design, because we were trying to bring all 3 of them at once. Due to their delay, we didn't want to hold up the other 2 projects, so that's why we brought those forward a little bit sooner, knowing that they were going to be working through their architectural firm issues.
Makes sense, thank you.
Okay. Mayor Police?
Yeah, so basically we've done 3 items already. We did 50% on everything. I think the Park District was the most at just over 500,000, if I recall. But the Park District also put in $1 million, so they already got back 50% of the money they put in, where the fire department put in $3.4 million, because I called for the numbers again, the updated numbers. And we only gave them $150,000. I asked, what do we have pressing for us? We know we have the water tower that's coming out of the TIF funds. Really, this is for projects, right? Talking to Brad, he's telling me, well, we got some road projects coming. in about 2 or 3 years, right? And we're actually generating about $5 million per year on the TIF funds. So we're not in jeopardy, and there's nothing else pressing, because that was always the concern. And technically, this is, taxing bodies' money that they've been putting in to help with the TIF. I don't see a problem of us putting the other 50% down here, since we have the money. Eventually, when the TIF is done, if we're done with all the projects, the money does go back to the taxing bodies. Why should they have to wait? How long is this TIF? For another 15 years, maybe? Right? Maybe 12?
12,
We're halfway
13,
through.
Yeah.
So I got a project right now. I say we move forward.
Alderman Artwood.
Couple things, but one, clarification on your statement that the fire department already put 3.5 million into.
3.4 million into the TIF fund.
Into this fund, this TIF.
The TIF fund, not the project.
Okay, that's where I'm like, what? Okay, and again, talking about the robustness of the fund balance, right? And seems like all the taxing bodies have gotten their projects done, and we don't have too many things, so can we have the discussion of just ending the TIF?
Director Wilson.
Well, if the mayor wants to say
No,
something.
go ahead. You'll probably explain it better. I asked about that. Can we pay off the Public Works building sooner and close the TIF? That was a big no, according to Mr. Wilson. But I know you can give it a better explanation.
I'll think of that.
Yeah, so, you kind of stole my thunder a little bit. Yeah, so the way you can close out a TIF early is if all the expenses of the TIF have been paid. The bonds we have for the Public Works building, as currently constructed, do not have a call provision or an early defeasance provision in there, and they run until pretty much the end of the life of the TIF. So if we were to want to do that, we would have to restructure that debt or like refinance that debt to allow for the defeasance of those bonds, and then we could. That being said, in a couple of years, if we do that, that would basically eat up all the available fund balance, and there wouldn't be a lot to disperse back to everybody if we closed it out early. Also, this TIF was, unlike next door and TIF 3 and 4, this one was designed to help revitalize the industrial park, and then also an ancillary benefit is to assist the taxing bodies. That's why on that southern end, we included all of their buildings in there, knowing that they weren't going to generate any increment being a tax exempt building, but that way, if they needed assistance with projects, we could do that. So to answer your question, could we close it out early? We could, but there's quite a few hoops we would have to go through to get to that point. And to do, the water tower and a couple of other projects we need, and to restructure and defease that debt, it would probably be 4 to 5 years before we could get to that point, if that's what we wanted to do. And like I said, the TIF was 14, said 23 years, that's 37, so we still have about 12 years left on it. So we're right at that halfway point in there. And so it'd take probably half of the half, so another quarter of that project to get to the point where we could even do that if we wanted to, based upon what we kind of have lined up at this point.
Follow-up?
Yes. So why wouldn't we have set up the original bond issue so that we could have ended it? What stopped us from doing that?
Director Wilson?
Yeah, at the time, there was no because it was, the way that, again, this TIF was set up was to be more economic development and assist with the taxing bodies. There hadn't been any discussions at that time of closing it out early, because everybody was happy with the way it was going, and to let it run its course to help redevelop that industrial park. We did put the call provision on the bonds for TIF 3 and 4, the data centers, so that we could close that one out sooner. And then next door with the apartment complex, that's a PAYGO. They're reimbursing themselves through the building. So again, when we did the Public Works building, there wasn't any conversation that I recall of even thinking of closing TIF 1 out early, just based upon how it was designed and what it was supposed to be designed for.
Follow-up?
Yeah, so I get everything you said, but just to have options, I don't know why we wouldn't have done that. Secondly, given some of the statements that, you know, this was designed to get money to the other taxing bodies, would they not get the money if we ended the TIF and they got the taxes, as was said? I would disagree with that structurally, but since that's the argument we're using, isn't it tomatoes or tomatoes, right? They're either going to get the extra tax revenue by being out of the TIF district or ending it, or we're going to collect money and then everybody's going to come in for their, for lack of a better term, handout to do a project.
Director Wilson?
And I think, in one last statement, I think the general underlying goal or concept that the council, I won't speak for everybody, but I think it was, is that if possible, all of these we would end. We instituted them to purposefully make corrections, adjustments, or improvements to the city. That being said, knowing that we didn't want to prolong them, we wanted to reduce them if we could.
Jeff?
Mr. Murmas?
Yeah, I just would like to talk a little bit about some of the differences between some of our TIFs. Obviously, you're correct. When we open the TIFs, there's TIFs that are for specific projects, like let's say the apartment next door, specific purpose, the data center, specific purpose. The main overarching purpose of the industrial park TIF wasn't for the fire district project, wasn't for any of our projects. That's an added benefit, but we have a competitive advantage in our industrial park on the fly when businesses come to us, want to either relocate to Wooddale, want to improve their current business in Wooddale or whatever. Closing it would take away one of the tools that we would have for economic development. So I would recommend we don't close that. We can always give the taxing bodies their portion early, but we would lose some of our tools to help recruit businesses, help current businesses, which we've done a handful of times, a number of times. There's a laundry list of those businesses. We would not have that tool anymore. So the creation of the Thorndale TIF wasn't for any of these projects. It was to give us a competitive advantage for a dilapidated industrial park to develop over the next 2 decades, because the TIF is 23 years. So it has been a successful TIF. We've helped businesses, we've recruited businesses, and we've helped the taxing bodies.
Follow-up?
Yes. So thank you for that recap. That was the way I understood it, that it wasn't for our projects, that it was to revitalize the industrial park. Again, maybe it makes more sense to me if I could see an assessment of where that stands and what that projection looks like. So what we're generating, so I can see what the possibilities are of helping other businesses that could possibly come in. So maybe, I don't know what that looks like, if we could put together some assessment of that.
Mr. Murmas?
I'm sure Brad can put together a historical assessment of, private businesses. Unfortunately, Brad's not going to be able to have a crystal ball, neither will I, so I have no idea what I know businesses have come from Elk Grove, and we've helped them. I don't know what could
So
come in
just
as,
not to cut you off, but, so I don't want you to project who's going to come in. I want a simpler prediction of, there's 12 years left, and in 12 years, if nobody takes anything out of the kitty, we could generate 1 million, 5 million, 30 million, 50 million. And so then mentally, I can look and go, what would that do for somebody that would come into business? How robust would the help be? So if you're telling me we're only going to generate $3 million over the 12 years, then that's really not going to bring too much benefit to potential businesses. But if you're telling me it's going to generate $50 million or $70 million, then that's a different, I don't know what those numbers are. I don't know what that looks like. So it's more mathematical than a
Director Wilson?
conceptual or projected business.
Yeah, that's something we can put together.
Alderwoman Fonseca?
I'd like to go back to the focus of the project itself that you're requesting funding for, but first, thank you all for all of your services, greatly appreciated.
and valued. So you showed us pictures of the front entrance. What additional kind of security are you looking to implement there outside of the security cameras?
So we have all manual locks all the way around the building. We have no way of recording who's actually entering the building, if they're an employee or a vendor or something like that, when the doors are unlocked. So we'd like to improve that. We have an emergency call bell, a 911 call bell for people that drive up to the station, and that's located at that front door as well. That bell rings the phone system in the station, and it rings ACDC, our dispatch center, so they can talk to somebody, whether we're in the station or if we're out on a call, they get the 911 center, and they send someone else to help them. That's the only way of, after hours, getting a hold of people inside the fire station besides pounding on the glass or the doors. So we have people pull up to all sides of that building, different hours of the day, sometimes in the middle of the night. We'd like to improve that ability too, to find when people are coming to get help from us, we have some way of identifying that or being alerted to that. So that would all be part of that security system, as well as the better lighting around to protect our employees' assets, like their vehicles when they're there for 24 hours, and people see that we leave for 5 and 6 hours at a time, so.
Okay. Follow up?
And while this construction is going to be in place, is there going to be additional funding needed for operations that are going to be happening during the interim, like pop-up stations or anything like that?
Chief?
No, we don't have to relocate anybody during this project, so we can still run out of that station, out of that building while they're doing the work.
Anything else?
Nope, thank you.
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions? I'd like to make a motion to approve the TIF fund request for the Fire Protection District for $1,002,303.
Second.
Second, third, fourth, fifth.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Artwoods,
Yes.
Alderman Currielli,
Yes.
Alderman Carr,
Yes.
Alderwoman Fonseca,
Yes.
Alderman Fasano,
Yes.
Alderwoman Ames,
Yes,
Alderman Artie Woods,
Yes.
and Alderman Catalano.
Yes.
and that passes.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Next item is water meter replacement strategy.
Just a second to,
Pardon me?
need a second for the chief
Oh,
to
yeah,
get, I gotta
absolutely.
pull up
Of
our
course.
slides real quick. Right, our slides, where are our slides? There we go. Is it that button? What button is it? Sure, okay.
Director Wilson and Mr. Lang, I'm sure you have a few things to say about this.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So as you've been seeing, reading in the manager's report over the last few months, the meter inventory in Wooddale, and I think Mr. Lang can talk about this better than I can, the transponders, the batteries in the meters are dying. Sorry. And they need to be replaced. Unfortunately, and I can let Director Lang speak here in a couple of minutes, they're dying at a rate faster than we can replace them. And we currently have a little bit of a backlog, but it seems like the backlog's continuing. So I'm going to go through these slides. Director Lang has some statements, and then we'll take some questions on that, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So currently we have roughly 5,000 meters installed and in use throughout the city. About 80%, so a little over 4,000 of them are at or past their useful life and are in, I don't call it the death zone, or at risk of dying and stop transponding, so Public Works can no longer get readings off of them. About 1,700 of them are at the end of,
Alderman Currielli.
The useful life, that refers to the battery or the meter, or we're just talking about a battery?
Director Lang.
Yeah, so there's the older type meters or disc type meters. They kind of have two components. There's the body of the meter, which is brass and has an internal mechanical component, a notating disc that moves as the water goes through it, which registers the reading. And then there's a head which records the reading and transmits it. So that head has a battery life that is 10 to 15 years. And the body itself can last a lot longer, but as the meters get older, sediment builds up inside, the mechanical functions become less efficient, and it starts to affect the accuracy of the meter. So it's reading less water going through it than is actually going through it.
Follow-up?
So you can't just replace the battery, you have to replace the whole meter?
So they did replace the batteries between 2005 and 2015, but now those meter bodies that have the mechanical components in them, those are 30-plus years old. They're from the 1990s, so those mechanical functions have, likely greatly diminished, and it doesn't really make sense to replace the batteries again. If we're going in there, it makes more sense to replace the whole unit.
Okay, thank you.
Please continue.
Okay, yeah. So roughly, so Alderman Curielli's question, in particular, the second slide is more of the transponder, that battery, not so much the brass. The brass is actually worse than this. So there's about 1,700 that are at the end of their useful life. They're in in that window where they're going to stop transponding, and there's about 2,400 that are past their useful life. So I guess we're lucky. That means the batteries have been lasting longer than 15 years than they were estimated to work.
Alderman Artwood?
Just for clarity, because there's a lot of moving pieces here, right? So the 2,400 past their useful life is the mechanical piece, is beyond its useful life, not the electronic.
It's the transponders, right?
Director Lang?
That would be the transponders, the electrical component. So that's the
components
it's
beyond
past 15 years, which is its life expectancy, yeah. The 1,700 is in that 10 to 15 year range where we would expect them to die.
But it's the life expectancy of the electronical piece.
Correct.
Based purely on the battery, or are there pieces, gears, or other things that would wear down in the electronic piece, which is the headpiece that sits on the meter, correct?
Correct, yeah, and it's mainly the battery life. And once that dies, we can't collect the reading. The meter will still record the reading, but it won't transport it to the antenna, so we can collect it.
Got it.
Alderman Curielli?
Is there a possibility of doing a manual read at that point?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, it's much less efficient, obviously, but yeah, we can do a manual read as long as we can get access.
So if a meter's dead, we can actually go and read it rather than send them a zero bill, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So Director Lang, when you're saying a manual read, are you talking about somebody going into the house and looking at the meter?
Correct.
Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
we would have to get into the house, get access to the meter, and take the physical reading off of the register.
Okay.
The old-fashioned.
Alderwoman Fonseca?
And that manual reading would only be triggered if
You didn't get a reading or a false reading or something, otherwise you wouldn't
Correct.
go and do a manual reading.
Correct, yeah. The transmitter goes to an antenna that is equipped on a vehicle, and we drive every city street to collect all the meter readings.
Alderman Artwood?
I promise we'll move forward after. So, my thought process, I want to share that. As I look through this, and we discuss these meters, and that have a useful life of 10 to 15 years.
The battery component, yes.
The battery piece, and then the meter piece. So there's two pieces that are moving, and within that is the life cycle. And so if I look at this, much like I look at the sewer pipes or the water pipes or the streets, we can determine a number that's probably a constant, right? And go through, which is what I would recommend, is that we replace, instead of doing a big spike where we replace 4,000 meters in a condensed period of time and start the cycle over again to where we get that big spike again, it makes more sense to me that we just did it as a continual maintenance, whether it's like the SURF fund for vehicles, right? We determine what those are, and we go through it so there's constantly adding in that cycle, or the amount of units getting replaced is a lesser number, as is the cost per year, right? Which would then be more manageable as opposed to spending $5 million, $6 million. So that's where my head's at, that's why I'm asking the question.
Director Lang?
Yeah, so what happened was between 2005 and 2015, they went out and did a changeover program of just the heads themselves, which is a significantly simpler process, takes a lot less time, there's a lot less back-end work that needs to be done. Now, we're not going to just change out the heads, we're going to change out the full meter. It's a much longer process, so we're trying to change them out as fast as we can. The problem is that the meters that are dying each month is starting to eclipse what we can physically change out. So there's this constant backlog of meters that are not transmitting. And then,
Follow-up?
Yeah. So, and I get that, you know, it was written up pretty good, so I'd like that we meet that, right? But obviously, there's probably more ways to do that. What would be the number? 400, 500 a year? Or you're saying we got to do 2,000 in 6 months? I exaggerate a little bit for effect, but.
Director Lang?
to stay on a 10-year cycle, you would have to do 500 a year. Obviously, if you expand that out to 20 years, then that number is reduced. The larger meters, 1.5 inches and larger, you should change out every 10 years. Those have a higher degradation rate than the smaller residential meters, which is typically a 20-year life cycle.
But could those be the head pieces changed out, and then the second time around, the body gets?
So right now, 80% of the meters that are past their useful life, 80% of the total meters, all of the meters that are past their useful life, we're expecting that it's the head that was changed out, you know, between 10 and 20 years ago, and now the full meter needs to be changed out. There's no really way of telling in our system, you know, if it's the meters, the original from the 1990s, and the head was changed out, they're married together in our system, so.
Mayor Police?
Yeah, so when we talked about this 2 years ago, I remember saying, because they gave us, Verigy gave us the whole explanation and water usage, this and that, and we did the math, and I think at 15 years, we might have broke even with the expense and whatnot. And at the time, I said, we probably need to start replacing meters, 400 to 500 at a time. And I don't remember the exact number I gave, but I knew it was at least 400 or 500, because I was trying to figure out 12, maybe 12 years, could have been 400. And I thought that's what was happening. But as we got this stuff and I'm asking the questions, last year we only did 190. So basically, we've got one guy doing meters. He's doing about 4 a week. I'm not sure how long it takes to change a meter, but I hear there's paperwork involved, this and that. Honestly, I wish you guys would have came after 6 months saying, listen, this is how many we can get done. We can't get 400. Maybe it was hiring an outside contractor, plumber, to help us out or something. But when we only did maybe 400 in the 2 years, it's way short of what we were anticipating at.
Director Lang?
So the first thing that we had to do after we brought this to you last time is our READ software was at the end of its life. It was no longer technically supported. So we had to update our READ software. We went with Beacon because the majority, that's a system run by Badger Meters, which majority of our meters are. So we implemented that. You know, that implementation takes a few months. We started transitioning to cellular service meters as opposed to the radio frequency, which we had always been on. And, you know, we did a trial run of those to make sure that they worked, make sure that they would integrate with Tyler, and that the new READ software would integrate with Tyler. And so that took a process. And then we began changing out any non-Badger meters on our system. And then we began to focus on some of the larger meters, larger combination meters, which aren't really compatible with Tyler. So we began that process of getting back to proactive changeouts. And the last few months, we've been averaging about 30 a month, which is 360 a year, which is about, you know, as many as we can do with the staff levels that we have. If 4 a week, you're averaging it over a 30-day calendar month. That's not really how it works out. There's some days where he could do 4 changeovers in a day, and then there's a handful of days each month where we're pulling the reads and he can't schedule any changeouts. So changeovers are not the only appointment type that he has. He had, I checked back at the schedule for December. He had 61 total appointments, 28 were changeouts, 7 were high usage, 21 were final meter readings, 1 was a building permit inspection, and 4 were turnoffs for contractors. Mayor wants to speak.
Yeah, again, I'm just going off the number. When I talked to the manager, he goes, no, it was 190 meters. We changed that last year. That's why I said 4 per week, right? A couple hundred. I'm sure the guy's got something else. I asked, what else does this guy do? I'm sure it's not, he just sits there and changes meters from, start to finish. I'm not trying to beat anybody up. My question is, so if we go with these different meters, they're more digital or whatever, from what I remember, I don't recall all the specifics. My problem back then was, okay, so we're gonna spend $5 million this year, and then we're gonna stiff the council in the future, 15, 18 years from now, with maybe gonna be 6 or 7 million. Is there a plan after this or it's every 15 years, the city's gonna get stuck with the bill? I'm just curious.
Director Wilson, I know you had a comment or.
Yes, just speaking on from what I've heard from other communities, Bensonville did a program like this back in 2013. So now those meters are starting to reach the end of their useful life, and they're proactively changing out just the battery components on those now. So you can plan for this, 20 years from the future. We start at year 15 or so. The nice thing about the electromagnetic meters, which we've been installing, is that in our software, we can see the battery health on it. So it'll tell us if that battery is starting to die or not, and we can prioritize those changeouts.
Mayor, please follow up.
Yeah, but, so you're telling me, Benson will change them all out, now they're starting to program. So if we were to change them all out, when does the program start? Because otherwise, that council's gonna be stuck with another bill. I want to, just like we did with the SURF fund for the trucks, right? We came up with a plan, so it's not blasting the city with a huge bill every 15 or 16 years.
Director Lang.
Yeah, so the electromagnetic meters, they have a 20-year battery guarantee. So we could start at year 15, we could start at year 17, changing out however many we think we need to in a year. The nice thing about that is that capital expense is going to be coming, so we can plan for it through our CIP process. It's this basically the same with any piece of infrastructure. You replace the roof on your house, and 20 years from now, you're going to have to replace it again. So, but you plan for that accordingly.
Director Wilson.
Yeah, just want to go back to one thing that was asked, and just slight clarification about the readings and the manual reads. It is possible to get a manual read. But typically with the turnaround from when the utilities department gets the readings and when we send out the billing, those manual reads, we're not able to get them. So people are getting billed just for the minimum charges, the $66.23 or whatever it is a month. And then when they get in to change that meter out, then they're getting a bill for that entire back usage. So if the meter's only dead for 2 months, they're probably getting a double bill. Early on, when we're identifying this problem, some people were 5-6 months. And that's partly scheduling, if people aren't responding to the postcards. We had one resident, I think the meter guy literally handed him the card and he never called for 6 months, and we had to send him a letter that we're gonna shut your water off, and then he called asking us for a payment plan even though he ignored us for 6 months. So, with the new initiative, the timeline is, I believe, shrinking. So while it is possible to get that manual reading, that typically doesn't happen because, if there's 30, 40, 50 meters dead in a given month, and we have 1 day between we get the readings and when we bill out, that's not really feasible for that to happen. So it is possible, but the practicality is really not there.
Thank you. Alderman Art Woods.
Yeah. I think generally we're kind of saying the same thing. It just only makes more sense to me to start that cycle now. Because if you put in all new ones and then wait 15 to 7, you're gonna, by default, change things out prematurely. Why wouldn't we just start the cycle now and go, maybe we gotta ramp it up a little bit. Year 1 is 400, year 2 is 400, year 3 is 500, and then get into a cycle where over the course of the 20 years, they all get replaced, because that seems to be the or the sweet spot, if you will, between the 15 and 20, as opposed to doing the huge purchase and then waiting, going, okay, we don't have anything to do for 15 years, and then we'll start replacing them.
Director Lang.
So at current staffing levels, like I said, we could do about 360 a year. To get through that 4,000 that are beyond their useful life, that would take us 13 years about. So, I mean, we would have to get help if we wanted to stay on like that, to get these all done within 5 years or whatever. My thought process is that, you know, it's much more cost-effective to do it this way all at once, because then you immediately begin reaping the benefits of those reductions in water loss, which we haven't touched on yet. I believe Director Wilson's going to get to in the slide.
That's what I was gonna ask. So what are those numbers?
Director
Right?
Lang.
We're
Or,
talking
I'm
about
sorry.
spending $5 million or whatever that number is, and how much are we saving versus how many units we can do every year, right? And so maybe we need to add 1 or 2 private sector people, plumbers, to ramp that up, and the first 3 years is 1,000 meters a year, or 900 meters a year.
Director Wilson.
Get into planing it out.
Yeah, I think if it's okay, we have some slides that might answer some of these other questions. I know there's some hands up.
Okay.
But if we can get, we appreciate the conversation, but if we can get through a couple of these slides.
Okay.
Absolutely, yes.
They
of
might.
course.
Can I just confirm one quick thing? Not to hold up the conversation, but that you said we are installing cellular ones currently. Is that the case with all of them that we're doing? And if so, are those all through that same Verigy company, or is this just a whole separate contract?
Director Lang.
So the new meters that we are installing are cellular-based, and that's not through Verigy. We buy those direct from Badger Meter, and we install those ourselves.
And just a quick follow-up, would those sync up with the leak detection if we choose to opt with that in the future, or would those meters need to be replaced to be a part of that system?
So the leak detection is kind of a separate component. The leak
Right.
detection, they go on the valves, the hydrant valves, and that's kind of monitored by a different software. The E-Series meters, the electromagnetic meters, they do have a leak detection component. They have a nice residential customer portal that will alert the resident if they're using water over a 24-hour period, so you know you have a leak in your house.
Right. I remember from that present, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying these current cellular ones we're installing technically are not compatible with the big picture package.
They are. These are the ones that we're installing now are the same ones that we would install under this
They
program.
are, okay,
Yes.
that's all I was asking, thank you.
All right, please continue.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Went over that already. Mr. Lang pretty much just went through this slide as well, a little bit of the history that we did go over to the Beacon software, so that's compatible with the Badger meters, and then that was kind of the flow, the non-Badger, the larger 2-inch nut compound. Public Works, then they started oldest first, but then as the meters started failing, they had to go to the failed first instead of the oldest first. So just going through this real quick, because I know in the memo it talked about accountability and how the billing works and whatnot. So, you know, where does the water go? Where does it come from? So I'm sure you all know we purchase water from the DuPage Water Commission. Right now, we bill out about 83% of what we purchase from them to the customers. So it's estimated that there's about a 5% loss currently in meter deterioration, and about a 10% loss in unknown leaks. Those are just main breaks or leaky valves or pipe junctions, hydrants, things of that nature. So that those leaks don't surface, they go down in the ground, so we don't know where they are. And I know you're probably looking at that and going, Brad, that's 15%, and that's 83, and that's only 98, so where's the other 2%? You're never going to get to 100% due to main breaks, municipal usage, hydrant flushing, things of that nature. So there is a couple of percentage points in there that, you know, we know what it is, but it's really for municipal use or testing or cleaning or something like that on the public works side. So that's where that other 2% is roughly. So again, kind of going through the math. So we purchase 100 gallons of water from the DuPage Water Commission. We sell 83 gallons. So that 17 gallons becomes non-billable, but we still have to pay for it. And then the rates are generally set to account for unbillable loss. But as you can probably imagine, if we're paying for water that isn't being billed, the rates are going to be higher than they need to be because we're paying for water that isn't getting billed out to anybody. So our current rate model that we developed a number of years ago, we did that when our accountability was around 88%. Most recent couple of audits from Finance and Public Works show around 83%. So there's a 5% delta between what the rate structure was set at a number of years ago and what we're at today. So your next question is, what does that mean? So based upon that 5% additional loss from when the rates were set, which is all believed to be in meter degradation, meter deterioration, that additional loss due to meter deterioration is about $400,000 a year and a lack of revenue that the city would be generating. The unknown leaks is about $200,000, which is because it's about estimated to be about 10%. You know, so this top bullet right here is really your cost of doing nothing, or cost of waiting. At this point, it's about $600,000 a year in lost revenue and or additional expenses that we wouldn't ordinarily be spent if the system was as tight as it should be. When we sent the numbers, our consumption numbers over to Verigy, they said that the loss would be about $414,000, that pickup on the revenue. My number was 400, so we're both very close on that. I did check the last couple of audits, and we're at about 2.3 to 2.4 million spend for the DuPage Water Commission. So, you know, that could be 230,000 to 240,000. And again, that's estimates based upon what we're seeing in the reports that Finance gets, and then also what Public Works is getting on their ID&R reports.
So I just want to interrupt just a quick second. Maybe Director Lang, this is for you. So today, since we don't have any type of leak detection, like how do you know that there's a leak? Is it just from somebody reporting a possible water main break? Is it through SCADA? Like how do you, because then you're losing so much water before you know that there's a leak. So if there's a detection process in place, you can get the leak sooner, shut off the valves, and work on the repair.
Yeah, so a leak on either the main or a valve, you're not really going to know unless it surfaces. A break, we can tell usually because our pumps at the stations will run higher than normal. They'll be flowing more water than we normally do, and then it's a matter of finding it. We had one that was running for a couple days, later last year, that we found on the golf course property south of Elizabeth Drive. It was the service line that goes to South Plant. It had been running for who knows how long. But yeah, to your answer, unless they surface, there's really no way for us to find them.
So if there's leak detection in place, that's on every fire hydrant? So in that case where it was on the golf course and nobody's really seeing that, like on a street, you would be notified that there's a leak and it would isolate a pretty
Specific
close area about
yeah.
where it's coming from?
Yeah, at the very least, I mean, it would narrow it down to like a half block between two valves. But I think a lot of this technology is within, a few feet, actually.
And then that saves time digging for it, too.
And
You're not
saves
on a
us the
treasure
cost
hunt.
of having to have an emergency leak locator come out that comes and listens. They set up, if we can even narrow it down to a smaller area, they could come out and do, an acoustic on the valves and try to narrow down where that is, but.
And that's what would be in place with the leak detection, which I know is different than the water meter. So that's
Correct.
the acoustic sounds of the pipes of wherever the water's leaking from.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Artwood?
Yeah, a couple questions. So how did we develop the 5%, 10% loss? How did we get there?
Director Wilson?
So, in going back, I think we have about 15 years of data. The highest number we had ever seen was 88 to 90% on that, on the accountability. And that was shortly after they had done some replacement of the larger meters. So we had attributed that pickup and that few percentage points to the change out of those meters. And so since there had always been that kind of that 10% slack in there historically, then after the 90%, as those meters have gotten older over time, that's gone down a percentage point, 2 percentage points, 3 percentage points. Everybody generally had attributed that to the meter deterioration, and then there was still kind of that base layer of that 10% roughly in there. So to be fair, it's not the most, I don't say scientific, but when the meters were being changed out, the accountability went up. When, as Mr. Lang said, they started just changing out the heads and stopped changing out a lot of meters, the accountability went down. So based upon the meter change-out cycle, and when meters were being more actively changed out and not, and the variability in that, that's why that was attributed to the meter deterioration, meter change-out, and then that base 10 to 12% that's kind of always been there. That's why that was attributed generally to that unknown leakage or unaccounted for losses.
And if I could just piggyback on that real quick. So every year we're required by the IDNR to do a water loss audit, and that's where we get that 17% figure from. We try to allocate, where every gallon of water that we brought in has gone. We do estimates for how much we lose from flushing and from what our facilities are using, or what contractors have used. So that's where some of these numbers come from as well.
Follow up, Alderman Wood?
Yes, thank you. And so how much do we spend annually with DuPage County Water Commission?
Director Wilson?
The last 2 to 3 years has been between 2.3 and 2.4 million.
And 5% of that number is how much?
So that would be the 10% of the unknown leaks. So that's the 200,000.
So the 5% would be the 10%? I'm not sure I understood what you.
Director Wilson?
Yeah, so the 5% is on revenue, the revenue charge, so on the user charges.
Okay.
And so that, the last couple of years, the user charges have been around $8 million. So 5% of $8 million is the 400,000.
Okay.
Mayor, Police?
Was that your last slide, or you got more?
I have one more slide.
Okay. Oh, wait.
Alderman Currielli?
Yeah, when we do the billing, you have a water charge and also a sewer charge, so that's proportional to the amount of water used. Is that correct?
Director Wilson?
Correct. In, I'll say most cases, the sewer charge is exactly the same as the water charge.
So when we have reduced water revenue, we also have reduced billings for sewage treatment. Is that correct?
Director Wilson?
The charges go down commensurate to the decrease, correct? Yeah. And just the caveat, I said, most cases, irrigation meter is the one that doesn't match because it's for the irrigation just in the yard.
Okay, please continue.
Sure. So this would be quick, these estimated project costs, and this is based on the survey we sent over. These numbers would obviously be refined if we were to move forward. They're not going to be higher than this, but just this was kind of their order of magnitude based upon what they came up with on the last survey that we sent over. And then the project would be paid for by the revenue generated from the pickup and the meter accuracy and fixing of the unknown leaks. So, if we were to pick up the $600,000 a year in the from the loss of revenue and the additional expenses, that would cover the expense on an annual basis for this program. And then as Mr. Lang, or I know somebody mentioned, the other ancillary benefit would we would be able to launch that customer portal where people could log in and see their usage, do leak detection, get leak alerts on their own. So that system we would be able to launch once we got all the meters up to snuff or modernized. Right now, it doesn't make much sense for us to turn it on just based on the low concentration of meters that we have. And then this is just the last slide. I know Mr. Lang has a couple comments on this, but these are towns that have done similar mass meter change-out programs lately. Some of them go back a few years, and some of them are more recent. Elk Grove was in 2020, Hanover Park was 23, Addison was around 2021, we're thinking. Itasca was 23, Bensonville was 23, Bensonville was 13, sorry. Bloomingdale was 23, and Elmhurst was in 2018. So just looking at this list, there's quite a few towns right around us that have done these, and that kind of spread out throughout the rest of the suburban areas. So Mr. Lang has a couple comments, and then
Mr. Lang?
Yeah, I just want to highlight, obviously, we know that this problem is not exclusive to Wooddale, something that every community is dealing with. It's limited resources and aging infrastructure. That's why many of the communities, all of our neighbors, many of them throughout the Collier counties and Cook County have undergone a program similar to this within the last 10 years or so. It's very difficult to do in-house, which is why they've contracted in some outside help. But speaking to a lot of these communities, not one of them has said that they regretted doing this or that they, wish they had gone a different route. All of them, in fact, just highlighted the savings of the water loss revenue. Itasca was at like 16% monthly in water loss, and after they did this program a few years ago with just the residential meters, they got that number down around 8 now. Elmhurst, I had heard that they were at 12%, and now they're down around 2. Bensonville was up over 30% before they did this, and now they're down under 10. So I don't think you can really discount the savings from the metering inaccuracies when you're talking about water loss.
Director Wilson.
Yeah, just one more point, and then we'll go back. It is a large project. It is a large undertaking, and part of the reason we're bringing this forward now. Yes, there's the revenue component, the unintended expenses component of it, but it's also the resident component of it. As these meters are dying at an increasing rate, when these residents aren't getting their bills for a while, they're becoming frustrated, they're becoming upset, and we're going to get to a point with 4,000 meters about to die that we're going to get a month at some point where there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's going to be a cascading effect on this. And if we're only able to change 30 meters a month, and if we have 100 die in a month, we're backed up 4 months, and then the next month it's just going to keep running away. The towns that have had just like a plumber come in or whatever, that's great, but then there's still all the back end work. So now we wouldn't even be able to utilize staff to continue that work because now we're doing all the back end work, entering the meters into the system, entering the change out information, working on the billing. So again, yes, this is a big undertaking, but they would manage Verigy or whoever we would select would be the PM for the project, where if we would just hire a plumber or somebody else, we would be the PM for that project on top of everything else. So I guess that's all I have to say about that for right now.
Okay, Mayor, please.
Yeah, so Brad, I know a couple days ago I talked to you, I asked you, so do we have to do it all at once or through Verigy, or can we do maybe 1,200, 1,200, 1,200, or maybe the system's not going to last? Or does that create a problem because now you're reading one way and not the other way? And then today I called you again asking you, being we had TIF on the agenda, is any of this TIF eligible? And I know you said Verigy would hold the loan or whatever, and I think that's what it was 2 years ago, but any answers to that?
Director Wilson.
There's a lot going on there. Relative to the TIF component, I did speak with TIF counsel earlier today. He said he thought it would be likely that we could use TIF funding for the meters that were within the TIF district. He's going to have to look into it a little bit more, but he thought it would be likely. As far as the financing component of it, yeah, we could do it through Verigy, or we could, go out and do our own financings. There's a couple of different methodologies that we could use on that. And then, change out 1,000, 1,000, 1,000. Again, back to Mr. Lang. So we are reading 2 different ways right now. There's the cellular and the drive, the laptop.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're reading 2 different ways right now. And again, the risk in all this, the gambit in all of this, is when are these meters and these transponders that are 10, 15, 20, 25 years old, when are they going to die? And what's the risk tolerance for people not getting a bill while we're trying to do it ourselves and catch up? Because again, if we get this cascaded, and those guys do a great job, but we're not going to be able to keep up.
Right, so I wasn't talking about us doing the 1,200. I was talking about, is Verigy, would they do 1,200 this year? Because I'm sure they're just hiring plumbers, right? They're the general contractor, basically. And will that work, or is that something they're really not into or whatever?
Director Wilson.
Sure, if we were to tell Verigy we want a contract for 1,000 meters, 1,200 meters, they would give us a contract for 1,000 or 1,200 meters. They would do that. But again, it's what's going to happen between now and then, what's that risk tolerance. And I know Mr. Lang and myself and the staff over at Public Works and the staff downstairs in Finance, it's not a path we really want to go down, but I'll refer to Mr. Lang.
Yeah, I don't know if you really reap the full benefits of it doing it that way. I mean, the cost of the meters is going to go up year after year. You're, getting back less of that water revenue up front than you would if you just did them all at once. But it's an option I'm sure we could do.
Alderwoman Fonseca.
So I understand that we're behind the 8 ball and doing that staggered approach of like 300 to 500 a year for the next 10 years to catch up. We're already past that, but as Mayor Police suggested, can we do some sort of staggered approach, even if it's not 1,200, if we focus on those that are already past their life, like the 2,400, and then do the remaining 1,700, just so that we have some sort of staggered approach, and then when we start doing the maintenance on them or replacing them or whatever we need to do 10 to 15 years down the road, start that a little bit earlier so that it is continuous and we're only spending a certain amount, or our staff here at the city can go ahead and address those maintenance issues versus hiring somebody out or having that big request come in 15 years from now and say, oh, we need another few $1 million.
Director Lang.
So that's what we're trying to do. We've been trying to change them out based on oldest, but now the number that is dying each month is outpacing what we can change. So we have to focus on the ones that have died last month, and now this month there'll be more that died, and there's still carryover from previous months. The concern is, and why we're bringing this now, is like Director Wilson said, this trend is expected to continue. Next month, it could be 100 meters, it could be 200 meters. We just don't know. And then it's going to get to the point where it's affecting, operations, residents, and revenues to a point that's not beneficial to the city. So we can't really, with current staffing levels, I can't promise you any more than like 360 a year. So we would have to contract, if we wanted to get to 400 or 500 a year, we would have to contract a portion of that out. And again, I just think it's less efficient to do it that way.
Alderman Artie-Wood.
Thank you. The 5.1 million, is that all inclusive with the install and demo renewable projects? That's everything?
Director Wilson.
Yes, so that's purchase of meters, install of meters, and the acoustic leak detection system.
If we went with that option with all the meters excluding the 2025 ones, if the council decided to move forward and do them all at once, is that something they could do in the calendar year, or is that something that would have to be staggered, or how would that work?
Director Wilson or Director Lang?
Yeah, they told us within 5 months, by the end of the summer. 6 weeks after approval by the council to really get mobilized, and then about 5 months for the install, and it's turnkey, so that includes the back end work as well.
2 other quick ones.
Of course.
Last year, or 2 years ago, when we talked about this, one of the big things we talked about is residents letting staff in or letting the contractor in or whoever, or being home during the day. I know not everyone's home during the day. I'm assuming they work nights, weekends. How does that work to accommodate people?
Yeah, so the first thing what they do, and they have a playbook built for this, this is what they do. There's multiple layers and rounds of public outreach, social media, mailers, door hangers, calls. They have a 24/7 call center that residents can call with concerns. And then from there, it's scheduling. Yeah, I think they're flexible. There's no limit to the number of crews that they can send out there. We might be able to get 2 crews out there. They can send 20 technicians out at a time if they need to. It's just hiring more subcontractors. So they have a lot more flexibility with a typical install. We schedule an hour for a change out. It kind of all depends. I mean, sometimes they're in crawl spaces, they're behind water heaters. The span on the new meter is different than the old meter, so you need to do some replumbing. If there's no ball valve, you have to shut off at the B box, and that can be buried. So it depends. Typically an hour, but with the caveat that it could potentially be longer with mitigating factors.
And last question: if we were to finance through Verigy, is that something that needs to be set up all encompassing at once for the fund? And what are the terms? Is that kind of vary based on what we move forward? Or?
Director Wilson.
Yeah. If I don't answer your question, then I apologize. We can clarify. If we're to move forward with this, we would get the contract from Verigy, and it would include the T's and C's of the financing and how that would all work. So it would be an all-encompassing proposal that we would bring back to the council, or to the committee for consideration at a future date.
My fear is kind of just comparing it to the data center stuff with the money borrowed towards that. The TIF isn't generating any revenue yet. We had to borrow more. We're paying more in interest waiting. This is not the same scenario, but I'm saying if we borrow $5 million and we're relying on the $400,000 we're going to gain in revenue, how quickly are we going to see that? But you said the install can be done in as quick as 6 months. So I'm just trying to think out loud of it.
Director Wilson?
Sure. Yeah, and that's something we could kind of negotiate and work through with Verigy. So all of their contracts are unit pricing, so it's, so much per unit or per house, whatever. And they would give us a full breakdown of that, and we would structure that out. My understanding, I haven't talked to them about this lately, is that, yeah, they don't go, okay, here's your last meter, here's your bill for, $500,000 for this year or whatever. So we would structure it such that we would have time to kind of get on top of that before.
That was part of my first question. Is the bill a total all amount financed $5 million? They're not even installed yet and they want payments right away, or is it something that answers the question per unit? So thank you.
Alderwoman Fonseca.
I just wanted to share with everyone that I do understand the importance of changing these meters out as quickly as possible, because I was in the situation and I actually had a good experience with the city, so thank you. But that surprise bill of, hey, this is only $80, this is wonderful, this is great. And then the next bill is, right, double the normal amount. And then if you do wait 2, 3, 4 months and you get this surprise bill because you're just seeing this minimal amount and you're thinking everything's fine, it's a large impact to families. So I do believe that getting these changed out sooner rather than later is really going to be advantageous and good customer service for our residents.
Alderman Catalano.
Right, and to your point, and also to going back to the residents that don't get bills for months, I'm surprised we don't do estimated bills based on past usage. And, I mean, this way they'll get the bill, and even though if it's an estimate, but then when the time comes that the meters are installed, then we can always figure it out, and I don't think it will be that high. Don't we use that practice?
Director Wilson?
Yeah, since I've been here, we have never estimated bills. It's been actual reads or zero reads. Just the way the system's set up, for various reasons. But yeah, that's not been something historically we've done.
But we can do that on past usage when we have situations like this.
Currently, our system's not set up to do that. It could be, but again, that's not something we've ever set up.
So is that the system that you're talking about? Because you said you're working off 2 systems right now, the new electronic system and then the old one. So eventually we would be at the smart meter system where you wouldn't have that, correct?
Yeah, so a couple quick points. One is the phased approach would still have us on 2 systems for a number of years. So that's another reason we would want to do them all at once, to get all on the cellular, all on the new technology. The system I'm referring to that doesn't do the estimated bills, that's the accounting software, that's Munis. So right now we have the drive-by reads, we have the cellular reads, we have the Beacon software, and then we have Tyler. So we're trying to get to Beacon Cellular and Tyler, eliminate more moving parts.
And regarding the estimated bills, this last round where we had 28 meters die and we had some carried over in previous months, we did issue a letter to those people letting them know that we recommend paying what your average bill would be so you don't get too far behind and get surprised with a larger bill.
Alderman Artwood?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to my original statement. It makes more sense to put this on a cycle. How you want to ramp that, we can do it. I hear we don't know how many are going to fail tomorrow, but apparently we've been waiting for them to fail for 2 years. With a smaller number, if we would have ramped it up, we would have been in a better position. And I go back to, if we do them all at one time in a 6-month period, 15 years from today, we're going to be sitting here doing the same thing because nobody's going to replace the newer meter, right? We're going to be looking at replacing 5,000 meters again, which is why I pushed for a ramped approach. My other questions are more to do with the with the numbers, you know, what the cost would be if we went and got a contractor to do this versus what Verigy is charging us. Because my numbers say that there would be a substantial savings, especially if we did the ramping. So, I mean, we could go back and forth all night. I think I'd need to see what Verigy has to say in detail economically for it to make sense.
Mayor, please.
So I asked a lot of those questions. So the meter's about $350. Verigy's roughly charging us $800. And I'm like, and we just heard an hour, maybe 2 hours at the most, if changing out a meter. We should be able.
I already did all the math, spreadsheets. Not a stranger. I buy water meters all the time.
Right. So the question is, these batteries, you said 20 years, right? So the old meters, you said they were just replacing the heads back in 2005 or 95, whenever it was. So what, are they just replacing the battery and they're keeping the outer shell in 20 years or 17 years when they start? How does that work? Is this two pieces also, or is this going to be a complete replace? Again, that was the thing 2 years ago. We don't want to basically stiff the city with a major bill in 15, 18 years.
So the E-Series meter also have an antenna, which is where the battery's at, and that is what can get changed out in 20 years. The PVC body can stay. There's no mechanical action in there, so theoretically there's no degradation in those like there would be with a mechanical meter. So the body can stay, and just the battery, and the whole antenna will get replaced. It's a sealed unit. You can't just replace the battery.
And just to clarify too, when you said with the new meters, you would have availability to look and see what the battery life is, where we don't have that now, correct? So you can see which ones are, dying first, I guess, and that would be the priority. Director Wilson?
Yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, not to belabor the point, but, I say just hiring a plumber, not to demean plumbers, all plumbers. That's the change-out component of it, but there's all the back-end work. There's the letters, there's the scheduling, there's the meter maintenance in Munis, there's the meter maintenance in Beacon, and there's making sure that everybody gets billed correctly. There's the linkage of the meter and the head into the system. So if we hire just a plumber, we're not going to hand them the city's iPad and go, hey, do this change-out for us, here's your work order, and have them fill out all the billing information and stuff. So there's the component of just physically going and changing the meter, but then there's all of the back-end staff time that if we just hired a plumber, then all of staff's time is going to be managing the plumber and managing the back end of all of that. So.
Yeah, and the nice part of turnkey project is what you're paying per meter. If you hire a plumber, he goes out there, it may take 4 hours, you're paying him an hourly rate. He might have to go back, you get charged a return rate. Not our system, we have an inventory, but it's not, 100% accurate. So it might say it's 1.5 inch meter, it's actually an inch, and then, you're going to charge a return fee. So it's just nice with Verigy. It's, everything is included, you know what you're going to pay, and you don't pay until that meter gets changed out.
So Verigy will not only schedule, the community outreach is big because people, want to know that this is sponsored by the city, and it's, they're having somebody come into their house and wherever their meter's located to do this replacement. They're scheduling it, and then they're documenting the new meter and the new system. So we, the city staff, are not doing that. Verigy's doing all of that and setting it all up on the smart meter process. So there's.
Correct,
it's
yeah.
Just, it's, and then
They're
is it ready to
integrating
go?
everything into our Tyler accounting software and into the Beacon software as well.
And then it's, once that new meter's installed, it's up and running, or is there another step that has to go to it to activate it, or what happens
I
after
think it
that?
just needs a full read cycle to get added to the system, so.
And then the residents are able to download a smart app or something like that, so they can view their usage real time then? Whereas
Right, it's
now
called
there's
Ion
no way.
Water is the name of the app.
And then they're notified if there's a leak or there's some
Yeah, they could track
excessive
their.
water usage,
Track their monthly bill as they're using it.
real time, not a month or so after
Correct,
the
yeah.
bill
it's-
comes.
Right now, if there's a leak on the system a day after we take the reads, they won't know until they get the bill 6 weeks later for, the following month. So this will alert you if you have 24-hour flow on your meter. Takes steps to correct it a lot sooner.
Okay, thank you. Alderwoman Fonseca?
So I'm thinking out loud here. I was thinking that the staggered approach hurts the pocket a little bit less, right? And then every so often you get another request for funding. But now I'm just kind of thinking technology, and as these meters get outdated, let's say 15 years down the road, the technology will change, right? We don't know. Is it going to be a smart app, or is it going to be something else? It's going to be something in your finger that'll tell you how much it is. So maybe I'm thinking, has that been something that's been considered, that if you go with that staggered approach, even though it's easier on the pocket, but from a solution perspective, you might have to support 2, 3, 4 or 5 different types of solutions, with the most recent changes being supported by the latest technology. Whereas if we do all of them now, and then 15 years down the road, whatever that latest technology is, we would push everything onto that, possibly. Like I said, I'm just thinking outside the box here from just a pocket perspective.
Yeah, obviously, we don't know, how technology is going to change over the next few years. We're confident in going with the cellular. We're pretty confident that cellular service is going to be here 15 years from now. But beyond that, we can't really say what technology changes there will be.
Alderman Currielli?
The cellular meters, could they be read manually?
Yes, they can be read manually, yeah.
Alderman Art Wood?
Yeah. Trying to think of how to phrase this properly. Again, so in part going back to the same thing that I was talking about, but I'm going to have to wait. We'll see the numbers from Verigy. That's going to make a big difference. But I think the biggest thing that concerns me is that there's never ceases to amaze me that we can spend the amount of money that we can spend. There's always reasons to do that. There's no shortage of reasons to spend millions and millions of dollars. And I get it, but there's always an approach, right? If I do things, I have X amount of dollars to work with. Doesn't matter if one system's better than the other system. I only have so much money. So on one hand, we talk about we're short revenue, and on the other hand, we're going, well, this will be the best way to do it, so we'll spend more money even though we don't have the money to do it. And somehow another company can make it work out, but we're not smart enough to make it work out. Those things bother me, and that's my demon, I guess, to deal with. But
I have a question too, just based on the results from these other, so these towns have all used Verigy, or they've all done meter change outs? Director Wilson?
Yeah, so, no, all of these towns were not Verigy projects. Caveat, the ones that were not Verigy projects were census meter installs. And so even though it was a different company, that company deals in a different meter manufacturer than we have in our fleet. So again, full disclosure, they are not all Verigy projects. However, the company that they used is not a Badger licensed vendor. So we wouldn't be able to use them just based upon the type of meters that we have.
So they did use some kind of a contractor similar to Verigy to do this. They didn't do it in-house, staggered. Is that why they were able to get them done quickly? Or I don't know how long the projects were, but so they didn't do it on their own is what I'm asking. Like they used a company in some fashion to do that?
Yeah, all of these projects were outsourced to a third party, like a Verigy, or I think that was Core Main. That's the census vendor.
Okay.
Yeah, none of these were in-house projects. They were all outsourced projects.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Mayor, please.
So what do you need right now from us? I haven't heard any motion yet. The pricing of this, I mean, I was Not happy 2 years ago, and not happy today either. What are you looking, what kind of motion? Are you looking for something specific? I'm just curious, because we haven't had a motion, so.
Director Wilson?
Yeah, we just need direction to move forward with getting contract documents from Verigy. That would be staff's recommendation to get contract documents from Verigy that we would then bring back to committee for review.
Mayor, please.
Right, so bottom line is, what's the cost per year, right? How much is this going to cost us if we go through Verigy or whatever, or hopefully we can use some TIF funds? You're saying possibly something. Again, what are the numbers? Where do we stand? So basically, you still need direction. You need an emotion or what?
Director Wilson. Director Wilson?
Yeah, again, since there's no, we're not taking this to council, so we would just need concurrence with the direction, so I know what to tell Verigy. I mean, staff's recommendation was to do the meter change out of all meters aside from the ones that Mr. Lang and his team have just recently put in, and the leak detection component. So we need to know what to tell Verigy to prepare. So if there's concurrence with everything except the meters in the last, year and a half or 2 years, and the leak detection, that would be what we would have Verigy prepare to bring back. If the, which I think was 2B, if we wanted to go with 1B, then we would need to know that. So we just need to know which of the 4 options to tell Verigy. That being said, I think 2B was the most verbose option. So if we do that and then we want to pare that back, once we see the numbers, we can start there and then pare it back, which might be easier to dial that number back instead of going up. Kind of like here, you can always shorten your hair, but once you get it cut, you can't really get it back out for a while. So,
Mayor, please.
Yeah. So you're talking about the last 2 years, but I'm looking at the map. You've got 0 to 5, 6 to 10. How many from 6 to 10? How many meters is that versus, just out of curiosity?
yeah, so 0 to 5 is 371.
And 521, I just.
521.
So
yeah, and then the other 4.
It's only 20%.
20%.
Alderman Artwood.
So within that, you earlier made a statement that we could ask Verigy to install 1,000 meters. Like, that's something they would do? Did I hear that correctly? Yes. So as I listened to all the stuff, and again, I'm still on the phased approach. So if you're telling me that we're saving $400,000 and I can change out 1,000 meters, right? So essentially, that's 100,000, right? Because based on the 4,000 meters that we're failing, correct? Not exact math, but close for the conversation. So again, I get the numbers, and I get that we all like to have, snap our fingers and it's all done, and I'd like, to do a lot of different things too, but I just don't have the money to do them. So I have to live within my means, and so that I think that the city should also. Can't we look at that? Can't you have a conversation of what that looks like? I mean, we can certainly shorten that period of time. I just, again, feeling that we replaced 5,000 meters. I know it wouldn't be 5,000, it's minus the ones that Ellen replaced already. But 5,000 meters, and again, in 15 years, we're sitting here doing the same thing. So whether it's 15 years or 17 years, it doesn't matter. It's the spike cycle thing, and that's what I'm trying to get away with. And we've been consistent in that ideology across roads and water mains and treatment plants, the SURF fund, the police department, all the things that we do. That just makes more sense to me. So again, if it has to be a little more robust, I'm looking at if I'm gonna save 400,000, if those are actual numbers, right? And we phased it in over a shorter, whether it's 3 to 5, looking at the most likely suspects to be replaced, then that makes more sense. And it's gonna be a less money, right? They could do both pieces that you said, right? They can.
Director Wilson?
Yeah, certainly we can have them prepare a model for that as well.
I'm just looking to see an option, because otherwise you're gonna come back with the contract that restates something that we looked at 2 years ago with re-envisioned numbers, whatever those are, but really doesn't give us a good look at what our options are. And I think it's always nice to have some options. It can get voted down, that's fine, but at least we're.
Director Wilson?
Yes, so to put a couple different options, I mean, I have talked to them and they said, if we need a couple of different proposals, a couple of different options, they can certainly do that. So we can do the full one, the 2B, the 5.1, and then if we want to do, just 1,000, and then if we want to kind of do, maybe what's everything 16 years plus that's past its useful life and kind of see what that looks like, they would prepare those cost estimates for us for consideration. They would do that.
Mayor, please.
That would be good to see.
Can I just?
Oh, yep. Director Wilson,
Say,
absolutely.
and then we could come back with those different permutations for consideration if that's what the council or the committee would like to see. We can certainly have them do that.
And if anything qualifies for TIF funds too, you said that's a possibility with where they're located, where certain meters are located, so that could help as well. Mayor, please.
So just looking at the list, right, so 16 years and older, you're looking at almost 2,500 meters. So if we're going to Verigy, we get price for the 2,500 and a price for the 1,250. 1,250 could be done this year, and 2 years from now, the other 1,250, because 16 years old, in 2 years will be 18 years old. We start spacing it out, and then the rest will come later, if we're looking at options, right? All at once, I hated it 2 years ago. I still don't like it, because 15, 18 years from now, council's stuck again, and they're gonna raise my water on me, and I'm gonna be on fixed income. Nobody's gonna like that.
Well, the good thing is you changed all the toilets and everything in the house, so your water bill went down. It did.
Alderman Fasano.
So in 15 years, though, you're not replacing the whole thing. You're just replacing a transponder, let's say. So the cost is not going to be $1,000 per meter at that. And it would be more because inflation and, whatever.
Right.
15, 20 years. But in theory, the city then can do that because it's just batteries or something. Or to, everyone else's point, if you did the 2016 plus the 2,500, the city could probably catch up then, right? You have enough help?
Right, if we contracted out a large portion of them.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
16 plus, you contract that out, it gets in 6 months, you recoup money, and then the city is in good shape to actually do the original plan of 360 a year.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
Alderman Currielli.
I certainly agree with the stage approach, 1,000 a year or something like that, but I also like to get a quote for doing the leak detection as well, since we're just talking meters on replacements.
Director Lang.
The leak detection component is included in that.
In the meters.
Yeah, it's about 1.1 of that 5.1.
How does these meters account for the unknown leaks?
By under-registering the actual usage that flows through them. So if as the mechanical components start to decline, 100 gallons could pass through, they might only read it as 96. So the customer's not getting billed for that 4 gallons that they're actually using. So that's a percentage of water loss revenue.
We're talking about leak detection for like water mains and
Correct.
things like that? So
that's another component of it, correct?
okay, that's part of it.
Correct.
Okay. And the meters that have been installed now do leak detection or not?
The E-Series meter, the electromagnetic meters, they have that capability. As Director Wilson said, we haven't activated that Ion Water app quite yet because there's not a large enough sample throughout our system. But the new meters that they'll be installing, the new ones that are coming out, they'll tell you the temperature, the pressure, all kinds of information, the battery life. They have a lot of cool features.
So that's a different model than what we're installing.
There has been upgrades since we started, in 2024 of installing the electromagnetic meters.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Director Wilson?
Yeah, I think just want to get consensus that we're going to probably come back with 3 different iterations. Do everything, 2,500 and then like 1,000 or 1,200 or something along those lines.
For the water meters, and then also the leak detection on the hydrants as well? Correct, that's a separate.
I think.
So can you do a partial leak detection program throughout the city? Because I know the water meters we're talking about, the specific numbers, but the leak detection is on all the fire hydrants. So can you break that up into different sections, or is that all or not?
I believe you could, you do a trial area if you wanted to. I would have to talk to Verigy about that, about the logistics, but I believe you could.
Okay, but in this scenario here, this is for everything, for leak detection?
Correct.
That $1 million or whatever it was, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Artwood?
So to Alderwoman Ames' point, the hydrant leak detection, if we could push that off, because as we're replacing those meters, we're recapturing more revenue, right? So we're in a better position to pay for things. So to backload that system, right, take care of the critical meters, right, the whatever 2,700, 4,000, whatever identified area, however you want to look at it first, so that we're going, how can we recapture the greatest amount of revenue as quickly as possible to accelerate this program and then get it on its cycle. That makes sense.
Director Lang?
Yeah, we can certainly do it, any way you want to phase it, however you wanted. The greatest portion of water loss is on real losses, is on leaks and breaks. That's, I don't know if it accounts for revenue, because that's, that's water that we purchased from DWC at a lower rate than we would sell it to the customers. So I'm not sure, which revenue would be greater exactly. I think we had it as the meter revenue is greater because that's sold at a higher rate to the customer.
Because that generates revenue.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
But the greatest percentage of water loss is on the actual system.
Right. But to pay for the system, we need revenue.
Correct.
So that's where.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
Mayor Police?
One final thing, just as you're getting the numbers, I'm just curious, what is TIF eligible, what isn't? So we know we've got everything, right? Okay.
So you have direction on where to go with this, just to finalize?
I think I've seen enough
this
head
topic.
nods to go with consensus on that, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for all the information and answering questions. Next item is the City Hall project update. We need to regroup, I'm sure.
Yes, thank you. So the slides will be hopefully quicker, and then I'll just open up for conversation. We're here last time at the cost estimate, which did include the chambers and executive session of about $2.83 million. The comments were committee council wanted to see it closer to the 1.6 number that had previously been budgeted. So we identified cost reductions, proposed cost reductions of about $1.3 million, that being the council chambers and executive session, these areas, And then these were iterated in the memo, but certain allowances, some HVAC work, the FFE, which is the furnishings and equipment, a couple of other items, composing that 1.3 million, which brought the cost estimate down to about 1.5 million. Again, we had previously budgeted about 1.6 million. So, again, working with our friends at FGMA and FQC, like I said, we were able to get the price down about 1.3 million through those cuts that were, again, listed out in the memo. And then just for consideration, I know there was some questions. One of the things we cut was the bathrooms. We did break out the lobby washroom because that's kind of on an island out front versus the 4 bathrooms back here that are stacked on each floor. So there is the bid alternate for the lobby washroom, which would go from 2 to 1 due to ADA requirements. The other washrooms, like I said, the 2 and 2 stack on these 2 floors. And then there was a question about what would it cost just to do the executive session reworking. Hard cost of that was about $87,000, and then about $30,000 estimated in soft costs between IT, boards, and again furniture and furnishings for that room. Again, that's an estimate. We didn't drill into that too much, but just based upon some of the other quantities that we knew, that was a rough number that we were coming up with. So again, I guess the top line, taking out the items that were iterated in the memo, we got the FQC estimated probable cost on about $1.5 million. And just have to get ahead of myself, but would be looking for consensus or motion, because the next step at this point, again, unless there's other conversation and wants for refinement, would be to go out to bid and then bring the actual bid pricing back to the committee at a future point, based upon this new estimated probable cost from Frederick Quinn.
That's it? That was very quick. Okay, thank you. Well, it seemed like from our last meeting to now, you did exactly what we asked to do, is to bring it into what our budgeted number was, with the other projects just being alternates for some of the other options that were presented with the executive session room. So that's taking out those things from the original bid, which was at 2.8, correct? Just removing those?
Correct.
Okay. Mayor, please.
But as far as this room and the back room, the wallpaper is going, that's going to be checked out, right? And the carpeting, correct?
Great, yeah, so 2 things. One, yes, it would still get the same, I guess, aesthetic upgrades of removing the wallpaper, the carpet, the ceiling tiles, but nothing structurally would change. Like
right,
the
okay.
dais would be the same.
Right.
The back wouldn't be moved that wall, whatever. The other quick point is, especially the bathrooms, the 2 bathrooms would be programmed into a future year CIP, because those would still need to be updated, but those would just be pushed off another year, 2 years or something like that.
So those would be the washrooms here and the one in the lobby too? Director Wilson?
So as presented, it would be the 5, yes. So it would be these 2, the 2 downstairs and the one out front. If we wanted, based on the estimated cost, if we wanted to add in the lobby washroom of about 70, that would take that to, wouldn't get up to the 1.62, it would still be under that. So we could theoretically add that in as a bid alternate, or we could bid it all and see what the pricing comes in at. But we would, speaking with FPC and FGMA, we would bid these 3 items out and then come back and see where the pricing comes in and what we could or could not do.
Put them in as alternates, not part of the main number that got us to the 1.6.
Correct.
Okay. Mayor, please, if you have.
So the alternate bids are going to be just the lobby bathroom or washroom combined, and then the other 4 bathrooms. Those are 2 separate bids, nothing else, no exec, no.
The extension of the accessions room. Sorry.
Director Wilson?
Yeah, again, that would be up to you what you wanted to see as alternates. They prepared a cost estimate for doing the work in executive session, kind of taking down that wall and expanding that. So that could be bid as an alternate, but if there's no appetite for that, then it would be just the 2 bathrooms, or 2 sets of bathrooms.
Well, and I think we were talking with the executive session room that we literally don't all fit at the table in there, or that the way it's set up now, there's wasted space with that room, or, that could be something to make that room larger so that we could actually all fit in the room, right? I mean, that was an option to just do that as opposed to reconfiguring this whole area, correct?
That's what that alternate is, would
Just-
be to expand that.
Just that, not
Just-
anything further than
Not
just that
anything
room?
in here or anything,
Right,
just, yes.
okay, all right. Alderman Artwoods?
Yeah, not to argue whether this needs to or not needs to be done. How many water meters could I put in for this amount? Again, going back to one generates revenue, one does not arguing whether one needs to be done or not.
Alderwoman Fonseca?
I would just like some clarification on the executive session. With that hard cost, that is expanding the room, the executive session room, the table, the format, all of that? And then is that hard cost included in the 1.5? Or is this additional to the 1.5?
Director Wilson?
Yes and no. So, yes, it would be to expand that space.
But not included in the 1.5?
But it's not in that 1.5.
Additional, okay.
Any other question? So we are looking for direction on how to move forward with the project, getting a bid, alternates. What are you looking for exactly?
Need a motion on this one.
I just don't know what kind of.
If you want
You have to go to the microphone.
I'm Fred Morano with FQC, putting the estimate together. So what we're basically awarding right now, or trying to approve, is to finish the drawings and then go out for bid and get the bids and bring them back to you to let you know exactly what the numbers came in at, and then you can approve the going ahead of the construction or not. So you're really not approving the work at this point in time, unless you want to, but you're really approving to finish the drawings, go out to bid, take the bids, see where they actually came in at price. Hopefully the number of 1.5 stays at that point. Maybe it's a little bit higher, a little bit lower, but net to the woods. We'll give you the alternates also at that time, and you can decide if you want to proceed with the work or not.
Mayor, please.
So technically, to finish the plans, we've already contracted for that, is that correct? So that will be done by the time the plans come. I don't know how long it's going to take. We're going to be in the middle of CIP and then budget. And, we already heard it once, and I'm sure everybody's thinking, how many meters can we buy for $1.6 million? So the contract, he has a contract, so if we move forward, we'll get bids, but again, we got CIP coming up. We got a lot of unknown factors, right? Can we use TIF funds on the meters? Are we going to do 1,000 meters? We're going to do 2,500 meters? A lot of balls in the air. It's a lot of money.
Director Wilson?
Yeah, so, spoiler's not the right word, but when you get the draft of the CIP tomorrow, it will have, between the remainder of this fiscal year and next fiscal year, $1.6 million plugged in for the City Hall project.
Right.
That's going to be in there. To your point, yeah, I mean, Quinn and FGM, they're contracted to get this to bid. And when we get those bids back, when they come back, again, that's another bite at the apple, I guess, right? If the bids come back higher, or things have changed. And let me answer in a second, the timeline on that. But we'll have the Verigy information back before we have the bids back. So the bids probably, March?
By the time we finish up the drawings, then we put all the packages together and put it out to bid, and then you got to allow 2 or 3 weeks for bidding.
March, April, probably. Yeah, so we'll have the Verigy information back before this comes back. So to your point about balls in the air and how many meters can we buy for this and that, then we'll know all of that before this comes back based upon the information we get back from Verigy. So timing is going to be a little interesting, but that's just kind of how the phasing is going to have to work.
Follow-up?
Yeah, me personally, we have the contract. Let's see what it is, and those discussions are going to happen. So you said the CIP's coming out. I knew it was the next couple of weeks. We'll start having, we know the building needs upgrading. We know we found problems on the other side. But again, the water meter thing is just killing me. So I'd like, before we start making all these decisions, it's nice to have all the numbers. What's TIF eligible, what's not, what is it for half the meters, a quarter of the meters, all that stuff. Okay.
Alderman Artwood?
Yeah, one last, I mean, again, not saying that this project doesn't need to be done.
Right.
If the bleed is 400,000 on the meter side, and that doesn't include the bleed in the system on the infrastructure side, we'll call it, the water mains themselves, you know, so that number of 400,000 is 500,000 or 600,000. 2 years, I almost paid for this, right? So
Right.
the importance of one over the other, and maybe sooner if we bring in the TIF district, and that accounts for, I don't know, 1/4 of the number. So, you know, I'm beating the horse.
Right.
Well, I'll make a motion to move forward on
Finishing
getting,
the drawings.
finishing the, to stay within with a new cost estimate of the 1.52 million, to just move forward with the bid process and see where it ends up. I mean, we have to know our numbers.
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Catalano?
No.
Alderman Artie Woods? Alderwoman Ames?
Yes.
Alderman Fasano?
Yes.
Alderwoman Fonseca?
Yes.
Alderman Carr?
Yes.
Alderman Currielli?
Yes.
And Alderman Woods?
Yes.
And that passes. Next, items to be considered at future meetings is the CIP on January 22nd. Are there any other items anyone would want to add? I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.